You all know that the mobile development is a life cycle. It's a product life cycle like any other life cycle out there, which basically you develop, you do some testing. Usually, if you use a free community, you may go around making manual testing. You may have testers, but you still go around and clicking the targets and trying to find your errors. And then you make some sort of deployment, and then you actually come around somewhere and you do it again and again. And it's of course important to understand, you don't use your old web page from 1994 still. You iterate them all the time. And this is very, very true for mobile. It's very fast. It's something that you need to keep up speed with. And this has been a problem for those that actually has more than 2 targets, maybe 3 targets, and they need to update their apps at least once or twice a year because Apple's SDK changes, Google SDK changes, and if you start to multiply the times, the number of targets you have with the times you have to update them, and adding the time that you have to support your own lifecycle, it adds up to a lot of time. And usually you have to switch frameworks, etc. So in the end, you spend a lot of time doing basically nothing else than keeping up. And this is something you can't afford, especially if you're a bigger company making maybe 2 or 3 or 4 apps internally, and then you have 2 or 3 apps externally, like for instance Aon or ABB or something like that. They're going to get stuck in just maintaining these things. And it's going to be very costly. So it's fast and immediately affected by the end users, of course. So you need to make it right the first time. Most of us just know that. Now, recently, I developed a smaller app for a company, I'm not going to say the name, here in Malmö, where I didn't use the platform. And I went through all of these stages, just like you would do, with building, testing, deploying, analyzing. And I'm just going to try to visualize the problems I have, which probably you have as well, during these phases that the platform will actually solve for you in some matters. Building phase, when I start to build this app, it wasn't too much UI complexity, but there was a cloud service and there was some UI that needed to be done. And basically what I needed to do there is pushing around pixels. You had to change where buttons actually ended up, and you had to recompile, and you all know what that means, recompiling. It'll take you at least 20-30 seconds or maybe 2 minutes for Android. And you have to cross-compile all the time, go in Android, etc., etc. So it would take you a little bit of time. After that, since this was a really small project, there wasn't anyone going to test the app for me. We had to test it, and the end client said, "No problem, we'll test it for you, no problem." I've seen that before. So I compiled something and add them to, so test flight is not there anymore. I had to go into Apple and fix that. The typical tool that needed some sort of updating every time I go in there and do something. So I needed extra time to fix that, and then invite them, and I started testing, and they clicked around. Now, obviously, they're not going to test everything. They're going to miss something each time they do these things, as I will do, because I manually test the apps. So what happens after some testing, and I say that, okay, now it should be working. You have this feeling inside, does it really work? Because I'm not sure, did I run all the tests really? And the end client says, yeah, sure, it works. But they probably didn't test everything, right? So you deploy. So I get it out. In this case, I got it out to Google Play. I usually go with Google Play first because it's much easier to change there. And immediately when they got it in their hands, they said, oh, this doesn't work. It's the wrong email. Okay, so I have to go back and fix something that they didn't actually tell me from the beginning. I have to do some new testing. And do I have to do all the testing again? You should probably do that because you don't know what happened on the way. What SDK do you build with, etc. And then you have to redeploy again. And for me, in this case here, I had to do this maybe 3 times, I think. 3 times. And that was excluding iOS. So that's going to cost you a lot of money if you have to do that all the time. So you need to come up with a better idea of how to test things the same way all the time. And you may want to have that integrated in a way that every time you build, the same tests run every day, maybe even every hour. So that when you're done over here and you want to deploy, you know that you're building with the same SDK, with the same tests, and that the tests adhere to the business goals that the end client had. In this case, this wasn't possible because it's a small app. So I wouldn't be able to sell them, the platform in that case and do all these things. And then, of course, in the end, it's also about analyzing. In this case, this was revision 2 of the app. They wanted to take a look at the app's analytics from revision 1 that was deployed 1.5 years ago. However, they only had 30 days retention, which is what you get with a free account of Accelerator. You don't get more. So I had no chance of actually getting in and getting the latest analysis for them during, for instance, a year. All these things, there are actually, solutions to these things that part of the platform is solving for you if you're able to actually use these tools. Because the platform is actually a number of tools in addition to the Titanium SDK. Not only the Accelerator Cloud Service, but a lot of other tools like, for instance, designing the UI in real time and so on and so on. So it's of course, you need a more complete set of tools. And if we go back to the cartoon that we had here, people that because of the license for the platform was really expensive before, many dev companies decided to, okay, we go ourselves with some sort of analytics that we bring in ourselves, our own frameworks, our own testing frameworks, etc. So they own test frameworks, deploy tooling, build strategies, etc., and all this has to be maintained as well. I've seen it too many times. I've experienced it myself where I had to go in and update some of these things, and it just costs more money. So the answer to this about 2.5 years ago was that Accelerator released something called, the Enterprise Accelerator Studio. It was the platform. At the time, it was aimed directly to maybe the, Fortune 100s, bigger companies making maybe, 10 apps or 20 apps during a 2-year period or something, which usually don't go for the average small company or mid-sized company. But what they did get was solutions to all or parts of these problems that they had, and obviously cutting time. With Accelerator Automation Test, for instance, you will cut about 80 to 90% of testing if you exclude the fact that you actually have to put up the test there. So you can run them over and over again, and it's automated because it's directly coupled to your code. So every time you change the code, the tests are run. Same thing goes for performance management, where you can actually measure the app's performance and see where the bottlenecks are. You have much better analytics, not only retention, but better analytics in itself. Live View is a tool for directly seeing what you're writing in code. So you can see that some of you, I know I've demonstrated this before, but instead of waiting like 20 seconds for the iteration to build, it takes like 0.5 seconds and you see the change of color or the text position or whatever. And then, of course, maybe the most important thing that I think I want to emphasize is the support and service. Because in this, not only this project that I'm running, but another project I'm using, because we have the platform, I'm using the support from Accelerator. I get immediate support, even those things that I don't understand maybe how to do something, they come back and they help me with that. So I don't have to become, this trial and error iteration that you get stuck in. So you spend like 2 weeks trying to solve something that the documentation says it's going to work, but it doesn't. You have no idea why. And 2 weeks is a lot of money. So support is worth a lot of money. And I think that's something that you may want to think about if you work for a company that actually make sure that you get support for something you're using professionally. And previously, the enterprise platform was expensive and only available to top players, but now it has become available to everyone, actually. I don't know if you know all the details about the new platform. I'm not going to say too much now because Folk is going to tell you most of it, but basically, the current users of Titanium has been getting a free account with the new platform 4, and newcomers to the Titanium have it is $39 a month still, yes. So there's like a low entry fee for actually using it. Pretty much like Apple takes the, I don't know, $100 per year or something like that, but it's a little bit more. So it's going to cost money. But we're coming back to that. I hope I made the point here of why the platform is there, what it targets, and what it's used for. And I'm pretty sure that, I don't know if someone here right now using the platform? Okay, yeah, all right.